This broadcast is brought to you by the Relaford Foot and Ankle Institute, located at 455 North Prairie Avenue in Inglewood, California, specializing in wound care, diabetic foot care, and amputation prevention. If you or a loved one has been recommended for amputation, please call Dr. Bill Relaford at 310-412-0183 or visit Dr. Relaford at www.therelafordinstitute.com for more information. In addition to the Foot and Ankle Clinic, Black Doctor 24/7 app has launched by Dr. Bill Relaford. Black doctors can be reached all across the United States 24/7. The Black Doctor 24/7 app connects you to Black Wellness 24/7, the Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program, Black Limbs Matter, and the Black Beauty Salon Health Initiative. If you're looking for more information on where to get the app, you can download it at www.blackwellness247.com or go to the Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program for the Wellness app. You can also reach them at www.blackbarbershop.org. Good afternoon, and good evening. We are here at Intentional Talk Radio Network with another evening of good, inspiring information, another evening of great people on our panel, another evening of information that you do not want to miss. This is going to be a great evening. And welcome to the virtual town hall. This is a call to action. What now? Where do we go from here under the Biden-Harris administration? What do we want to do, folks? What do we want? What do we want to do? Where do we see ourselves? Do we want to hand out or do we want to hand up? Do we want the door open for us and we will fly through it? Or do we want them to hand us what we think is ours? We're going to have a conversation about that this evening. I would like to say welcome and thank you as we get started this evening right here at Intentional Talk Radio Network. I am your host and moderator for the evening. I am Colette Williams, and I'm joined by my moderator and also board member, Mai Collins, who's from the Bay Area. She is a real estate broker and entrepreneur. She is the founder and CEO of My Diamond Services, LLC. Her company offers a huge amount of services, residential and commercial property sales, and she also does corporations. So if you need anything, make sure you call Mai. She's also an activist, and she sits on not only the ITRN board, but several others. Thank you, Mai, for being with us this evening, and thank you for being a great board member. And we're going to get this discussion started. And we are going to get started with our Kingdom Vision guests, Ronald and Rachel Wilson. Ronald Wilson is the founder and senior pastor at Kingdom Vision Life Center in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I understand you guys are COVID free. Very good. Pastor Wilson's accomplishment includes 25 years in ministry, 23 of those years, which has been served as the pastor of Kingdom of God under the leadership of the late Bishop John W. Barber. Pastor Wilson developed a strong zeal and passion for souls. He is anointed by God as a visionary to plant structure and excellence in the lives of God's people. Structure and excellence, that's what we're looking for. Structure and excellence, that's why we're here. His overall aim is to bring people into a greater awareness of heaven's culture, as well as to challenge all to strive towards taking ownership of heaven's vision right here on earth. Also, his wife, Rachel Wilson, is a profound teacher and prophetic preacher, a dynamic speaker who has more than 20 years of experience in ministry. She plays to audience who enjoy listening to her songs, her preaching, her counseling, and she uses her struggles and her triumphs to bring more of a personal and touchable feeling to her audience. Folks, I'd like to introduce Ronald and Rachel Wilson.
God bless you all. God bless you.
God bless you all.
Honored to be here.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Ken, okay, we've got your, there we go.
We've been through the flood, been through the rain. We've had sickness, a whole lot of pain. Through it all, we can't stop living, no, no. And most of all, we can't stop giving. So give love, give peace, give hope, give it free. The world needs you. The world needs me. So give love, give it free.
Wow, that is absolutely wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rachel and Ronald, that is so inspiring. That is absolutely wonderful. I love that. And I hope our panelists and those who are listening, I hope they enjoyed it. I hope they enjoyed it because it speaks to what we're talking about this evening, America. It speaks to that. We play songs by The Waters, we play songs by Sounds of Blackness because it's not only is it uplifting, but it speaks to the plight of the Black community. And I don't have to tell you, all of you on this panel, all of you in the audience know and understand what we're trying to do this evening, why we're doing this, because the time has come. In fact, we're overdue. We are overdue. And this is a time where we need to stop with the foolishness. And I could go into foolishness, but I'm not going to do that. Stop with the foolishness. We need to do something that creates a cohesive connection between all of us to get this ship moving in the right direction. It's up to us. It's not up to anybody else. That's why we're here. It's up to us. And as I say that, I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to say it again in case you missed it. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I don't think I have to tell you, justice for all, the last three words, that does not apply to us. One nation under God does not apply to us, even though we are God's chosen children. Indivisible, this country has never been more divided. I think there might be 15 parts of this country now, and we are way down on the list. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That does not apply to us. That does not apply to us. We listen and we hear about the Constitution. That doesn't apply to us either. The Emancipation Proclamation was created so that we could go fight in a war.
Okay, I had to turn my mic off. Well, the preamble to the Constitution, written in 1787 by Gouverneur Morris, says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Well, since Blacks did not obtain citizenship until the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause of 1868, that preamble clearly wasn't written about us or for us. So, do we have a right to expect justice? Do we have a right to expect domestic tranquility in our neighborhoods, general welfare, or the right to expect the blessings of liberty? Well, I was no poli-sci or government major, so I look forward to our panelists answering these types of questions and more. Before that, however, we would like to give you just a brief synopsis of the very impressive bios from our distinguished guest panel, because we want to have as much time as possible to get through as many of your questions as we can.
Okay, and just before we do that, we're going to get started with a prayer from Rachel and Ronald Wilson. Ronald and Rachel Wilson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you again for the opportunity and the platform that you guys are putting on this astronomical event, and we're honored to be here. And Father, we thank you and we glorify you. And we say that right here in America, in our African culture, that you have been good to us. And Father, although you have been good and just and kind, and your hand has always been upon our head, there has always been a knee upon our neck. But yes, Father, we thank you that you are rising and exalting every valley, that you are lowering every mountain. And Father, we thank you that you are making every crooked place straight and that you are smoothing every rough place. And Father, we invite you in to this town hall tonight, asking, oh God, that your kingdom come and that your will be done, and that equalization will continue to spread abroad in this American nation, in our culture. We thank you. We magnify you. We praise you, oh God, asking you for the capacity to speak, to understand, to listen, to share. Father, we thank you, Lord God, for clarity of mind. We thank you for a clear head even to speak. And we thank you for the panel. We thank you for the host tonight. We pray, God, that you will get the glory and that at the end of the day, equalization. Thank God for equalization and equal rights for all men, for all women. And we appreciate you for this space of grace. We thank you, oh God, for what you will speak tonight through this panel. We thank you for the ears and the hearts that it will fall on. And we say, oh God, have your way. Speak to our heart, Holy Spirit. And we thank you for provoking and invoking change in America, change in our communities, change in our nation, change right here in our homes. We give you glory, we magnify you, and we thank you right now that whom the Son set free, he and she is free indeed. In the name of the Lord Jesus, we do pray and we thank God. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Lord.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What we needed. And we are going to get started with our introductions by Mai Collins. Mai, take it away.
Okay, Dr. Sylvia Gates Carlisle is a director of practice management curriculum at UC Riverside Family Medicine Residency, a graduate of Brown University with internal medicine training from LAC USC Medical Center. Dr. Carlisle is passionate about providing high-quality health care for seniors and those in our underserved communities. The recipient of the Watts Health Foundation's Regional Administrators Award, she is a volunteer, the wife of a doctor, and proud parent of 2 public interest lawyers. Grammy Award-winning singer and industry executive Jay King is the CEO and president of California Black Chamber of Commerce. He also sits on the Caltrans Small Business Council, the Small Business Council for the Department of General Services, and the California High Speed Rail. He's also a commissioner on the Sacramento Police Commission, organizer of this North Sacramento Leadership Council, founder and spokesperson for the Greater Sacramento Financial Literacy Group, and radio personality on CBCC's community station KDEE, as well as his own show, King in the Morning, on the J. King Network. AJ Ali is the director and producer of Walking While Black. LOVE is the Answer, an award-winning documentary film about relationships between police and communities they serve. He also authored a book titled LOVE is the Answer, which is being used in schools nationwide nationwide, and people around the world are taking his LOVE is the Answer. So Love is the Answer pledge. In 2020, he made history by being the focus of a 7-page spread in the Black History 365 textbook for his work. He has been joyously married for 26 years and is a service-disabled U.S. Air Force veteran. Thank you for your service. Lawrence E. Adja is a community builder and host serving on the nexus of business, faith, and community wellness. Lawrence holds a BA from Harvard, an MBA from Stanford, an MED from the University of Texas at Austin, and a MDiv from Gordon Cornwell Theological Seminary. As the founder and chairman of the Family Dinner Foundation, his first initiative in 2008 reached nearly 50,000 young professionals around the world. He currently hosts 2 shows, Watch God Work and A2D, Agree to Disagree. With 15 years of consulting experience, he is also a trusted advisor and counselor to various executives. Finally, he is an ordained pastor and leads the world's first gospel-based spiritual gym called Foundation JC. Licensed in New Jersey and North Carolina, and after operating her own private practice since 2016, Faith R. Fox Esquire recently accepted the position of managing partner for the Chochran firm's new flagship office in Charlotte, North Carolina, the only one in the state. The Chochran firm, built on the legacy of Johnny L. Chochran Jr., is a national law firm with offices conveniently located throughout the country. The Chochran firm Charlotte, with attorney Faith Fox at the helm, offers residents unprecedented access for the compassionate handling of legal matters and concerns. For more information, visit thecochranfirmnc.com. Dennis McKesey is president and senior lead consultant of the educational consulting firm Our Best Interest, IOBI. He is a graduate professor at his alma mater, Mercy College in New York, in New York. Dennis is an innovative and resourceful education professional with more than 20 years of experience working for private, public, and charter schools in New York City. He recently launched Off School Grounds, an initiative to engage school leaders nationwide in leadership development. He also appears in the critically acclaimed documentary Waiting for Superman, as well as the book Whatever It Takes. As a former principal, Mr. McKesey works with leaders, principals, and education administrators to serve as a host and presenter at school leadership conferences nationally and internationally. Ms. Jan Perry is an executive director with Infrastructure Funding Alliance, government relations strategist, public policy and administrator leader, and board member with over 20 years of progressive service in a variety of municipal and nonprofit leadership roles. She has a master's degree in public administration, expertise in local, state, and federal government operations, knowledge of lobbying and legislative processes, and experience working with elected officials and other stakeholders. She is also a former Los Angeles City Council member. And then finally, Dr. George Fraser, when he joins us, founder and CEO of FraserNet, which is an award-winning 32-year-old global leadership network of 91,000 Black professionals, business owners, and community leaders. This Cleveland-based author, entrepreneur, and speaker's mission is to lead a global networking movement that brings together diverse human resources to increase opportunities for people of African descent. His 15-year-old, very popular annual Power Networking Conference was selected by Forbes magazine in 2015 as one of the top 5 conferences not to be missed by entrepreneurs. In 2011, Dr. Fraser was inducted into the Minority Business Hall of Fame and Museum, and he has been awarded over 350 awards and citations from around the world, to include 3 honorary doctorates. And that is our esteemed panel.
Great. Thank you very much. Everyone has such stellar, absolutely wonderful credentials.
Colette, we lost you.
Okay. I think it was Kenny Hendricks or someone said that they're going to create a new song about you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. We all have so many Zoom meetings and people are talking and everybody's saying, you're on mute. You know, there's a commercial about you're on mute. Boy, oh boy, you're on mute. That's the climate that we're living in these days. Well, I'm off of mute now, and I think you hear me. So we are going to get started with our questions to our panel. Why does it keep going back on mute? Maybe because I made a funny out of it. Okay, I'm going to try this again. We're going to get started with our esteemed panelists. We're going to keep going, and I hope this thing does not get me. Okay, we're going to keep going. We're going to start with questions now from segment 1. And thank you. Again, I can't say thank you enough to all of our panelists and to everyone who has been a part of creating this virtual town hall. This is our 5th town hall, and we are so proud of the work that we're doing. And I hope that you all are proud also, because bringing you in and doing this it's really it's a pleasure for us. We're trying to get to the bottom of things. We're working, and we thank you for being with us. So I'm going to start with question 1. Mai, do you have anything to say to our panelists before we get started?
Just not other than echoing what you've already said. Just thank you very much. We appreciate your time, your energy, and the things that you do in and for the community. God bless you.
Yes, thank you so much. So my very first question this evening is for Jan Perry. Jan, my first question. In your words, what do we want from the Biden-Harris administration? Do we want a hand out, or do we want a hand up?
I think we need a partnership. I think we need a sustainable, strategic
partnership with heavy involvement from communities across the country to leverage federal funds so that they are spent wisely and in concert with state, county, and local municipalities with a very focused target on those things that particularly affect people of color and African Americans. I was doing a little research before the show, and I was pleased to see that the Biden and Harris administration was already thinking about targeting small businesses, mom and pops, and sole proprietorships in people's communities, which more often than not are owned by African Americans and people of color because they form the backbone or the spine of a community in terms of bringing services in that are family owned and operated, and in many cases are legacy businesses that go from one generation to the next, which is another way to build intergenerational wealth. So I think, again, what we're looking for is a strategic, sustainable leveraging of federal funds. And I can get into the details on how to do that later in the conversation. So we don't, it's not even about a handout. It's about recalibrating because our communities were already behind. Then we got hit with a pandemic, an economic downturn. So not only do we have to close that gap, but everything has changed from a technology standpoint. And so we have to get broadband and internet even deeper into our communities. The pandemic has exposed the fact that there isn't sufficient infrastructure in our respective communities for the kids to be able to stay home and do appropriate Zoom learning because there's not enough infrastructure in underserved or neglected communities to provide the support for that. And that's just another example of where we need to go.
Right. So do you think that a partnership is something that we actually need, or how do we create sustainability on our own? Is it a partnership that we need, or do we come together? Because remember, we are a $2 trillion spending machine, and the dollars in our community go around one time, where in the Hispanic community, the dollar goes around 26 times. In the Asian community, it goes around 28 times. In the Indian community, it goes around 28 times. Our dollars go around one time. So isn't it incumbent upon us to put our dollars in places that keep us strategic, building, sustainable?
Well, I think that is the obvious and simple solution to continue to recirculate Black dollars within Black businesses, within the Black community. And that is something that is entirely within our control. Right. But the way that we can engage and interface with the federal government in terms of federal dollars, federal grants, is by setting up financing districts in targeted areas to focus on social justice issues, to take the property tax revenue generated within those issues and spend it back in those communities in a very specific, very targeted, very dedicated way. And the greatest example that I can think of, because it affects us all on a national basis, is the issue of homelessness. Homelessness and its overlap with mental health, its overlap with poverty, and in communities that have an utter lack of sufficient resources. So to be able to talk to the federal government and say, hey, we're going to focus on this area and infuse it with, workforce development that's focused on people who are at risk, people who are formerly homeless, vets, people coming out of the criminal justice system. We're going to have a pipeline for not only beds for people who have mental health issues to get them off the street, but permanent supportive housing. But we're also going to require you to work with the social service providers in the community, and the federal government has to be able to supplement that or infuse net new revenue into those areas so that we can stabilize a community and create that platform for growth. And I think it's not energy well spent to worry about pulling everybody together first. If you can pull together some communities, some states, get it out there, get it in the pipeline, because I can assure you, based on my own experience, and I'm not a lobbyist, I've never been a lobbyist, but I can tell you this much. If you show success and you show that you're able to take people's needs and meet them and move forward, I guarantee you everybody will follow suit. And that's where the unity comes in. It's not in the talking, it's in the doing.
That's right. Thank you very
Mhm.
much. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. That's why I wanted you to answer that. I've got another question. This is a perfect segue. Are there grants available along with training needed to rebuild our lacking communities? And that question is for Jay King. Are there grants available along with training that's needed to rebuild our communities?
There
Jay.
have been, yeah, there have been many grants, and there will continue to be grants, and there will be training. There will continue to be training. We're doing a series of trainings with the SBA right now, the Small Business Administration. But I think we have a more systemic issue, and not systemic as it relates to racism, systemic as it relates to our own leadership. We have horrible leadership. We've had hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that have come through our community that have not been used properly.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about that. We have
Yeah.
people that sit in positions for way too long that won't let
Yes.
young leadership come and change the conversation in our community.
That's right.
So if we're going to be honest, we have to get eyeball to eyeball with how we failed our own community. Now, you said something about the dollar. Our dollar only circulating in our community one time. Our dollar used to circulate up to 100 times. We
Yeah.
were our dollar circulated more than any other dollar, but we were
Yes.
segregated at that point.
Yes.
We're not in a segregated society anymore. We're in an American society. I think if we want to be one nation under God and with liberty and justice for all, then we have to demand that. So I'm an American of African descent, but I'm an American first. I am America. America don't get to be a superpower without me.
Yep.
I'm sugar, I'm tobacco, I'm
Yes.
cotton,
Yes.
I'm the slave trade. I am the backbone of America. But I think I don't speak in terms of black dollars because I still haven't seen one yet. Every dollar I've seen was green. I want every dollar that is available to me from every part of the community, and I want to be plugged in. And I think if we're going to, getting grant dollars isn't good enough. Getting training isn't good enough. Changing our mindset, for me,
Yes.
is our number one critical issue that has to happen. And we can't get mad at people not loving us when we don't love ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And so, that's why, and we can't let groups like Black Lives Matter reappropriate our pain and suffering.
Yeah.
If Black Lives Matter, they have to march when Black people kill each other. They have to speak as loudly when Black people kill each other as they do when other people kill us.
I agree wholeheartedly. I do agree. And thank you for that. Mai?
Okay, on the topic of reparations, we have a 4-part question. A, does anyone know the current status of the AADOS, which is African American Descendants of Slaves Reparations Bill, and the potential of it being passed? B, who is responsible for pushing that bill through? The Black Caucus, the Congress, or the Senate, based on wherever it currently sits? Where on the internet, this is C, where on the internet can one go to read the most recent language on this reparations bill? And D, should reparations be in the fight, or should we be fighting at this point in time for something else? This is not a question as to whether or not you agree with reparations, but whether it's something we should be spending a lot of energy on at this time. That question is for Attorney Faith Fox.
So I knew you were going to say it was for me, and I can't answer like most of those. I haven't really been keeping up with ADOS, and every time I hear a group talking about these issues, everyone is so far apart. I'm not sure exactly what we're expecting to have happen. Even the people in the organization, people that have drafted the bill, seem to be really far apart on where they want this to come from, what they want to happen with it. In terms of the expectation, is it going to go through? I can't give you any facts. I can only give you my personal opinion on it, which of course, doesn't have a lot of value.
Oh, yes, it does.
But with regards to just trying to understand, I think there's so many of us that don't even know what the bill is about, that it's been there for quite some time. It's not a new bill. that these conversations have been going on. And it's frustrating because so many other areas, so many other groups of people have received reparations, and we're the largest group, the most disadvantaged, and we haven't received anything. So I think that the challenge is going to be the fact that there's so many of us that needs to be compensated. What is that going to do to the economy, which everyone is always so concerned about when we're talking about the stock market and billionaires losing a couple of dollars on some stocks, but we don't care about the fact that the millions of people, who are on the bottom of that same equation, who could make a little extra money, that it could actually make a difference in their lives. But America is more concerned about keeping the rich rich and keeping the poor poor. So, in terms of reparations, obviously, I think I'm in support of them. I don't know what they look like, how they're fair, how you decide who gets what and everyone is compensated. So I can't really speak to the bill, only my own personal take on reparations.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. And I actually,
Can I?
Jay would like to comment.
okay.
I just want to, because first of all, I don't believe we're owed reparations. There's a debt owed for crimes committed that our government allowed. And in order for it to happen, we have to get buy-in from white America. And so in order for that to happen, we have to put it in terms, in my opinion, that white folk understand. And white folk understand debt. And if we want to make America great for once, in order for America to be great, she has to pay her debt to her original citizen, Americans of African descent.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the economy would bubble if the reparations were paid or the debt was paid the way it's supposed to, which is, to me, between $350,000 to $500,000 for each African American man, woman, and child. Erase all back tax debt, old school debt, any debt older than 18 months, no taxes for 5 years, healthcare for 10 years, 25% down payment grant for homes so everybody can own a home. If you have a business, a 1% loan for 50 years. If you stay in business for more than 20 years, that loan is forgiven. We have to do things that are going to even the score. But what it's going to do is we can't talk about America not being fair, and we can't complain. That's why financial literacy is going to be so important to us. That's why investing in the market, understanding what happened, that billionaires didn't get beat up in the market. Small guys got beat up. It was the big firms that handle all that money, those billions of dollars, and those people lost money, not the hedge fund manager. So just understanding those things. But I think we have to first call it debt and not reparations. We have to talk about our government, because our government allowed these things to happen and was criminal in not allowing us to be governed by the same constitution that every American is supposed to be governed by. 1917, on the floor of Congress, congressman said the greatest threat to America is a Negro soldier coming back from World War I, believing he has the same inherent rights as a white man. This is white man country. Now, that's what we said on the floor of Congress. So we have to address those things. And I believe if brought to America in the proper context, even white folk would say, that's criminal. But if we don't understand our history, if we don't know our history, if we don't know about Ocoee, Florida, if we don't know about Elaine, Arkansas, if we don't talk about the very things that were criminal that happened in this country, we can expect everybody else to fight for it. They don't understand what we don't understand.
Right. Very good. Thank you very much, Mai.
Thank you. Just to end that segment, I did find out that congress.gov is a place where we can go and look up all of the bills or proposed bills that are in office, and we can read as to what's going on with each of those. And the reparations bill, from what I understand, is a bill that says they want to study what that would look like. So it's a bill to just agree that they will study what reparations would look like, and if we're if we're owed that or not. So that's where I just found out it stands. Moving on to our next segment of education. This first question is for Mr. McKesey. What employment opportunities will be available to African Americans who are not STEM educated within the next 10 years, in your opinion?
Unmute. Okay. Yes. It's funny. I got an opportunity to have this conversation a few days ago with a few principals, and one of the things that we were perfectly aware of is that the STEM majors, the young people who have that exposure to STEM, are clearly are going to make more money. There are higher salaries in those fields. However, everybody's not going to be a major in science, technology, engineering, or math. And so you got to think about other options for them. So I got a chance to speak to a few nurses. I got a chance to speak to a couple of construction management workers. I got a chance to speak to some other real estate investors. And I asked the question whether or not this is going to be required in 10 years. And they said, yeah, but portions of STEM. It won't necessarily be STEM as a whole that everybody needs to be aware of or needs to have access to. So I think it's very important for us to realize that there are going to still be jobs such as nurses, doctors, as well as police officers, investigators, those type of things, those other opportunities for our young people to have that I think truly will still be able to help them to sustain a healthy lifestyle, as well as, build generational wealth. I do think some of the things that Jay has mentioned earlier about just investments, like it's not about necessarily making $500,000. It's basically about how much can we invest, how smart are we about our investment. So I am a firm believer at this point that as an educator for as long as I've been, the idea of pushing children or pushing young people towards STEM may not always be the most optimistic way of doing things for them, because as I said, they get up every day and they see and or aspire to be other things. We shouldn't be able to kind of pigeonhole them into that. And as I said, there's nothing about being a real estate agent, a real estate advisor, construction management worker, marketing, running your own marketing firm. There's nothing about that anybody should be disappointed in or should feel as if that's not an honorable occupation in which to go into.
Okay, thank you. Colette?
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I found out that it wasn't me on mute. Something's going on here in the atmosphere. So my computer kept going back to mute, but now you can hear me. So I'm going to keep going. We're now under law enforcement, and this is a very, very hot topic, hot place to be. And my question is for AJ Ali. AJ, I've got a question for you. How does the police culture of shooting to kill an unarmed person get changed to de-escalation? How is it, in order to justify the actions I feared for my life, is justifiable? AJ?
Yeah, Colette, it's never, justifiable. I've been in this space full-time 24/7 for about 9 years now. And I was called into this space after an incident where I was profiled. And then after I reported it, I was harassed for a year. And I went on to make a film and do some other work to create this movement called the Love is the Answer movement, teaching people how to love each other. Started with teaching, desire to teach police how to protect and serve equally, how to love the community that they were serving equally. And I have found over the years, with over 50,000 people going through our programs, workshops, and film screenings and other things, that we have to get down to the cellular level. There's no law that we can put on the books that's going to stop a bad cop from being a bad cop. There's just too many ways around it. Right now, there's qualified immunity and other things. There's a lot of tomfoolery going around in the justice system where, things are not fair. They're far from fair. We have two justice systems, and if you look at it closely, maybe there's three or four. Depending on how much money you have and what color your skin is and where you live and other factors. So my work, our team, which is made up of community members from all walks of life and former police chiefs and others, we're busy teaching people how to love each other. And I believe that no matter how many laws you have on the books, unless we can get down to changing hearts, that last line of that song, that beautiful song by Rachel, "We all need more love," couldn't be any more true. We've got a lot of people who are hurting in policing. They are hurting, and they're hurting people because of it. Their wellness levels are off, their physical health, their mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. They need help, and they're not getting it from their own people. Suicide rates, domestic violence rates, alcoholism, and other things are higher in policing than just about any field in America.
Mhm.
And so they're not getting the help they need. They're hurting. They've got to go from one call to another and tuck they may have seen someone get shot, a little boy. And the next call, they go to a domestic violence call. And they get their life threatened while they're trying to save a spouse from being battered. And then they got to go to another call. And if they try to seek mental health support, sometimes they get, they put their career at risk. And don't even get started on Black officers. Black officers have a huge role in the community. But oftentimes our own community calls them things like Uncle Tom. We don't support them. And then when they go to work, they'll see a noose in their locker or a banana on their car seat. And so we need to support our Black officers, especially because their mental health is in jeopardy. And until we get down to the cellular level of really loving on people and teaching people how to love themselves and each other, it's really not going to matter what laws there are, because people will find a way to get around them.
Right. And that is a subject that we could talk a lot about. There is something circulating now that lists all of the people that have been shot needlessly. And each time I see it, which is frequent, it just brings me to tears because nothing has been done. And I think we spend a lot of time with Black Lives Matter, and then it's over. They say what they say, and then it's over. And we have not really addressed anything. Nothing has changed until the next shooting. So
Yeah.
we're not gonna belabor that. We can. That's for a different show. I've got another question.
Can I just kind of wanted to piggyback on that.
Sure.
Only because, as an attorney, it's hard to hear about all of the murders, all of the deaths of people in our community. But I also think it's important that we understand that it's not our job to rehab bad officers, that they deserve to be punished, that they need to go to jail. And while there are certainly mental health issues that need to be addressed in the police departments, I don't know that we should spend a lot of time rehabbing bad officers as opposed to getting them out and bringing people in that can handle the actual job. It's a job. People aren't born into the profession. It's not something they have to do. If you can't handle pulling somebody over for a parking ticket without pulling your trigger, then this is not the job for you. And I don't think, qualified immunity is a horrendous law that gives people permission to kill Black people on the streets. And so while I 100% agree that Black police officers especially are dealing with double demands on their mental health with regards to what they're dealing with the public and what they're dealing with their coworkers, I also feel the same way, that it is a job. And also, I think there needs to be some accountability on the part of the officers that are there watching their coworkers take advantage of people on the street, harass people on the street, use excessive force on the street, and don't say anything. So I think that there's a lot that needs to be done. And I kind of get sensitive about conversations where we as the Black community are taking responsibility for the mental health of Caucasians when the police departments were set up to round up slaves from the beginning. And that's pretty much what they're still doing. So it's frustrating to me sometimes to hear us talk about rehabbing bad officers instead of terminating them like they would from any other job. You know, you can't be late to a job at Burger King without getting fired for you can be late 3 times, you know, but you can kill somebody in the street.
Yeah.
And not only do you get to go back to work the next day, first you get an administrative leave, which is basically vacation.
Paid.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes.
You know, it's just very frustrating. I think people need to be fired from their jobs and held accountable, and then they can get mental health while they're in jail thinking about what they did.
Unfortunately, Hobart, and I'm sure, Faith, you understand this, Police Officers' Bill of Rights, which is a legislative issue.
Mm-hmm.
Law enforcement officers have an extended right beyond that of a regular citizen. So
they should not. I mean, I understand that it exists.
But I don't agree with it at all. But the bottom line, whether we agree or disagree, we can't do anything about it until we change the Police Officers' Bill of Rights, and that's where voting, that's where knowing who your legislators are and understanding what the issue is. Otherwise, what we do is we fight at the wrong level. We fight at the level right at the police department level, when we should be at the legislative level. We have to change Hobart. If we're not changing the Police Officers' Bill of Rights, we can have these conversations forever and a day, and it won't mean anything. It'll just be us exhausting ourselves with words that can do absolutely nothing. We have to change the Police Officers' Bill of Rights, and we need to talk to our legislators about it.
Right, thank you. And we had 2 questions that address both of those, but we're gonna keep it moving. In fact, the question was, what would it take to pass a law that eliminates qualified immunity for police officers who kill unarmed people? And
well, I think we need to vote. This is not my area of expertise.
Go ahead, Dr. Carlisle.
I come from a family where people are voting rights activists. Hudson versus Lee County, the Mississippi voting rights case was my aunt. So we need to vote like our lives matter or depend on it, because they actually do.
Mm-hmm.
We have the ability to vote. And yes, people are trying to take it away from us, so it must have some kind of power. And if we if all of us who are capable of voting vote with as much enthusiasm as folks in Iraq and Iran who put their lives on the line to vote, we would have more control. And so that's something we all have the affirmative ability to choose to do, and our choice not to harms us.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. I'm gonna move on to the next question. And as I said, these are questions and the answers are coming from the panelists. These are things that we have talked about previously, not new. We continue this dialogue, and it's to bring solution. It's to bring some kind of resolution to what's been going on. Defund the police is a big thing. And should we defund the police? Are we getting the right things in place to defund the police? And defund the police, from what I'm getting, doesn't really mean defund the police, but I think it's being done without the proper address. You cannot defund the police and take them out of the streets completely. And just as Faith said, retraining, I don't necessarily agree with retraining. I think if you have to retrain adults for something like that, racism, how do you retrain them? That's an indoctrination that was there for decades. And I believe consequences are what has to happen. Voting is what has to happen. We all have to hold them and ourselves accountable in the right places. Okay.
And I think the conversation is beyond defund the police. It is police have no expertise in mental health crises. You're not going to sending someone with no training and a gun to a situation that requires training and the lack of a weapon is a setup for failure. And so, yes, there are things that police do well, mental health crisis work is not on the list. And so to make the choice to invest in mental health crisis support for mental health crises, as opposed to this entitlement mentality where the most, the sacrosanct part of the budget is what we do with the police and the police union. And so the police are not mental health experts, and that putting those resources in communities that need it is a logical, data-driven solution.
Right.
What's interesting is that, it's easy to dehumanize people you don't know. And so I think one of the opportunities here is reimagining what actual accountability is. So even as you're kind of looking at the legislation, another piece of it, for example, you can't run for president if you haven't been a citizen here. In some sense, there are many people policing communities in which they have not grown up in. There is no relationships. There is no vested interest. They take their salary and that tax goes out to another community in which they live and enjoy with their family, but they're not really dwelling with the people that they're actually called to care for and serve. And so I think there's an element of proximity that allows people to actually have what I call like relational accountability. I read what was called post-traumatic slave syndrome by Dr. DeGraw. And one of the things you talked about is how in our community, we're not necessarily motivated by the meritocracy, motivated by relationships. So it reimagines how you think about education for young people when they think about my relationships at stake because I disappointed the teacher. In some sense, even when you think about this policing, what does it mean when I'm shooting someone, but I got to go home in that same neighborhood and live there? What is the likelihood of someone who went to high school in that community and then became a police officer? How does he think or she think about the decisions that they're making? And so I think that's just another lever to pull as we're thinking about obviously the legislative opportunities that you actually can't qualify to police in this neighborhood if you have not been here for such and such years, if you have not lived in this neighborhood for a certain amount of years. I think that's another way to kind of move things forward.
I would
jump in?
definitely tend to agree with that in theory, but I also think that it's unfair to have people living in a community that's horrible if they don't want to. And part of having a job that allows you to move and live somewhere that's better, safer, or whatever is what you consider to be, on the come up, I think is a totally fair thing. What I don't think should be happening is that white officers are going into Black communities. White officers can go into white communities that they don't live in and still have compassion for the people in those communities. They don't have compassion for Black people. And with regards to the vote, I think that it's important to note that we can all, everybody, of course, supports people being able to vote, trying to outlaw voter suppression and things like that. But certain things are, if it's not on the ballot, we can't vote about it. Qualified immunity is at the Supreme Court level until there's a case that comes along or there are Supreme Court justices who find value in our lives and don't give the police officers permission to do these things. Those things are not going to change. And you have qualified immunity at every level of government. So, I have a case right now with the Board of Elections, and they are arguing, jumping up and down right now about qualified immunity because their employees have done some discriminatory things that 100% they will get away with because of immunity. And immunity is across the board. It's not just the police departments. It's anybody that works for the government. They can do whatever they want. They can admit that what they did was wrong and they still won't be held accountable. And those are the kind of things that have to change on a legislative level. And not just, you can't just say we have to vote because somebody has to get it on the ballot. And the people that can get it on the ballot are not in office. And it's just not a priority until somebody that has suffered from these laws.
We have a black caucus at every level. The POBAR, the Police Officers Bill of Rights, Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, is at a state level. Some states have give police officers greater authority than others. In California, AB 392 took some of those rights away. An officer can't say, "I'm feared for my life," and then shoot somebody. They can't do that anymore. So again, you're right. It's not about voting in California.
Oh,
So
in California, because you can
yeah,
still do that here.
no, yeah, in California, that's what I just said. In California, AB 392, Shirley Weber, Assemblywoman out of San Diego, when Stephon Clark was killed, that was brought to the forefront, and they changed it. But they have to change the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights, and the police union is very strong. So you have a Black caucus, put pressure on the Black caucus, make them do that work. It's their job. But if you don't make them do the work, then they'll skate by it and go to the other things they want to do. It's not a very attractive conversation for them. But I believe that if we're going to make a fairer system, listen, I serve on the police commission. As a police commissioner, I don't have any power. If you have a police commission made up of 9 officers and 1 civilian, that commission, because of that 1 civilian, cannot exact a punishment against an officer.
Right.
A commission that can exact a punishment against an officer has to be 100% law enforcement. All I can do is make recommendations. And that's what we've done here. And it's how we're changing the conversation between law enforcement and the community. We're making law enforcement be accountable for law enforcement and community being responsible for community. An officer is going to probably get fired from the Sacramento Police Department because he discharged his weapon when he didn't have to. And in law enforcement, the captain brought it to us and said, this doesn't look good to me. I don't like it. This guy's been on the force for 5 years. This is his second shooting. And so when you have, but that's because we worked for a number of years to create a conversation. And when we come to the table, we have to be willing to listen so that we can be heard.
Right. And on that note, Jan, I see your hand is up, and we're going to have to go to a commercial, folks. We will be right back. You are listening to Intentional Talk Radio Network. This is a call to action. What now? Where do we go from here under the Biden-Harris administration? We will be right back. This broadcast is brought to you by the Relaford Foot and Ankle Institute, located at 455 North Prairie Avenue in Inglewood, California, specializing in wound care, diabetic foot care, and amputation prevention. If you or a loved one has been recommended for amputation, please call Dr. Bill Relaford at 310-412-0183 or visit Dr. Relaford at www.therelafordinstitute.com for more information. In addition to the Foot and Ankle Clinic, Black Doctor 24/7 app has launched by Dr. Bill Relaford. Black doctors can be reached all across the United States 24/7. The Black Doctor 24/7 app connects you to Black Wellness 24/7, the Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program, Black Lives Matter, and the Black Beauty Salon Health Initiative. If you're looking for more information on where to get the app, you can download it at www.blackwellness247.com or go to the Black Barbershop Health Outreach Program for the Wellness app. You can also reach them at www.blackbarbershop.org.
Thank you for listening to the Intentional Talk Radio Network. Remember, you can catch us live every Tuesday from 7 to 9 Central for Change Matters, every first and third Tuesday from 6 to 7 for Your Life, Your Health, every Wednesday from 7 to 8 Central for Conversations with Corliss, Tanya, and Colette, and every Sunday from 7 to 8 Central for Shine with Shondell.
Hey folks, this is Colette Williams from Change Matters. I'd like to tell you about another sponsor that we've got here, Daryl's New Orleans Grill at 21720 Avalon Boulevard, Suite B in sunny Carson, California. Serving succulent catfish, shrimp, po' boys, seasoned with the Cajun and Creole spices, the jambalaya, the gumbo filet, and my favorite, gumbo yaya. You can get party wings, chicken and waffles, anything that your heart desires. So remember, that's Daryl, D-A-R-O-W, Foster Foods New Orleans Grill, located in Carson, California. For those of you with a sweet tooth just like mine, you're going to love the peachy peach cobbler or the mouth-watering thin wings. You can have it delivered 424-570-0531 for pickup. You can also use DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates, or Grubhub. And for your pleasure, dining on the patio is open. Are you looking for somewhere to shop, for entertainment, or for your dining pleasure? Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza is the place you want to go, located in the heart of the community, on Crenshaw and Martin Luther King Boulevard. The Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza has 134 shops to serve you. The new hours are 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday, and Sunday, 12 noon to 6 p.m. If you're looking for a community restaurant, try the Post and Bean or the Kick and Crab. And don't go too far. Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza has the Cinemark Theater with current movies. And don't forget the Great Farmers Market every Saturday, 10 a.m. till 3 p.m., rain or shine. The mall also has great attractions and entertainment. The African American Museum and the Debbie Allen Dance Studio, Wells Fargo Bank, and Bank of America. Don't forget Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. You can find us on Facebook at Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza or on Instagram at hashtag Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest. Okay, we are back. Are listening to a town hall a call to action. What now? Where do we go from here? And we're going to continue this discussion. We've got two comments. One is Jan Perry, the other is AJ Ali. Jan, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I'm commenting from the perspective of someone who was an elected official for 12 years and a veteran of many, many campaigns. I think that on a national basis, as a community, we need to look very closely at candidates who accept money from those special interests that create that pipeline to prison. And one of the more powerful unions in the system are the prison guards. Many of the beneficiaries are those who develop private prison systems. And of course, police unions who have massive amounts of members. So they are extremely powerful and influential. And candidates who accept money from those interests, whether it is directly into a campaign or while they're not supposed to coordinate, into what is called an independent expenditure, which is where special interest money goes separate and apart to benefit a candidate, is something that's extremely dangerous, and most people don't monitor it. And when you see candidates who are benefiting from this money, you need to question that and put it out on the public record and in the public domain, and organize as a community to either speak against it, oppose that candidate, because it goes on. They're not even hiding it. It's right there in plain sight, and people are not even reacting to it.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Let's go to AJ, and after AJ, I need to bring in Dr. Corliss Bennett. So let's get this in. AJ, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead with your comment.
Police and police community relations, we have a lot of power. We do. We have to just stop thinking transactionally and start thinking relationally. We've got to start with movements and continued sustained movements, not moments. Nothing's going to change with one march. Nothing's going to change with one gathering. We've got to sustain pressure and build relationships at deep levels. And I just wanted to share one quick example. In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is 83.3% white,
Wow.
there were a lot of black people there that don't feel like they have a lot of say in how things go. But a year ago, the DA in Bucks County licensed our film, Walking While Black, Love is the Answer. His first event was with 350 high school kids. And from that moment where he said, I was defensive at first by bringing this film to Bucks County. I was defensive, but later he said, you know what, it's the best decision I ever made, because he gave people an opportunity to have a say, to have agency. And what happened in Bucks County is that the county wound up buying hundreds of our books and putting 2,300 of their employees through intense training out of the 40 police departments there in Bucks County under DA Matt Weintraub. Nearly all of them have now adopted love-based policing as the standard. They've rewritten their countywide policies on how they police. They're involved in events and programs on a daily basis now, including members of the Black community in ways that they never were engaged before, because they didn't think they had the power to step up and say, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And so since he came on as a DA, 5 other DAs in Pennsylvania have adopted Love is the Answer and are pushing for love-based policing to become the standard. It's just, we put a lot of emphasis on laws and other things, but we've got to focus in on the heart. We got to focus in on that. And I've seen miraculous transformations take place, and I've seen people change their policies accordingly when they see and realize the humanity in us, and they realize that we're not going to go away, that we're not there just for a moment, but we're going to be there day in and day out. And we've got to keep that pressure on, because we do have the power to change things right now, not 10 years from now, right now.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to have to move on, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Corliss Bennett from Conversations in the Mix. Corliss and Colette. Corliss?
Might help if I unmute, right?
Yeah, we had a conversation about
make
that.
A record. If somebody's gonna make a record, okay, I'm dating myself, but you know what I'm saying. Somebody's got to make a song about unmuting. That's just the most popular saying in the last year. So you heard at the beginning of the program about the Pledge of Allegiance and the preamble. Martin Luther King says, oh, and we all know that the Emancipation Proclamation was about freeing the slaves. So Martin Luther King says, believe in yourself. Believe that you are somebody. Nobody else can do this for us. No document can do this for us. If the Negro is to be free, he must move down in the inner resources of his own soul and sign with a pen and paper or pen and ink to self-assert manhood as his own Emancipation Proclamation. So basically, men and women, in order for ourselves to be free, we must be free ourselves so that we can assert all of these different things that we've been talking about today and, get ready for the next election. It's not over, but we must, nobody can dictate us but ourselves. And we must stay ready, because 22 will be here in a moment, and that's going to be a very powerful election, and people are sleeping on it, and we need to be ready. And that's all I got for you, Colette.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Can I just chime in?
Okay.
When we were talking about, there were a couple of comments made that I kind of wanted to reference. The first being the whole idea of candidates taking certain special interest money. Many of our unfortunately, Black candidates don't get the financial support that they need from the community. If not for a lot of these special interest groups, they wouldn't be able to run a campaign at all. And it definitely says a lot to about the Black community where we decide to put our dollars. But I do think that there should be some responsibility on the wealthier Black Americans to reach back to every community, every Black candidate, do the research and invest in those people so they don't necessarily have to take that special interest money, because the only way that a lot of these candidates can even have a chance at running is to accept that money. Because, I don't know that I look at it as dirty money. I like to believe that they're going to take that money and do the right thing with it once they get into office. That's generally not what you see. But I think that in order to avoid that, then the Black community that has the money has to actually step up. And there's no pressure on Black Hollywood, screenwriters, all of these other people to do that. They want to take a few pictures and call it a day, because then everyone else will support the candidate just based on them standing next to a Denzel Washington or somebody famous enough that they'll care about. But that is not enough. They still need the finances. And so I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not they should accept that money. If they don't accept the money, we'd have very few Black people in office. And then on this whole idea of like loving, this love police thing is kind of like making my hair on my neck stand up, because obviously love is not going to be enough. And also Black people loving is not going to do anything. We have already been indoctrinated to be this very docile, loving, not fighting back type of people, which is why we're in this oppressed state today. And it is very strategic, and it's unfortunate for us, but certainly Bucks County, I'm from Philadelphia. Bucks County is one of the most racist counties in the entire state of Pennsylvania. Black people there have been afraid for my entire life. This is an area of Pennsylvania you don't go to after dark. So the fact that there is a DA who now is subscribing to this whole love fest on the police department doesn't really surprise me, because they probably don't want to make any significant changes in Bucks County. The demographics there is very white. I'm surprised that it's only 83%, because it's very, very scary place. It's always been a very, very scary place, and it's probably always going to be a scary place. And this idea that they're going to subscribe to this love fest and putting all this love in the police department needs more than love. And they certainly don't need just love from us. So, it's disappointing. I just get very disappointed when I hear us talking about this very docile approach to some things that need to be handled with more force. So, I think it's nice. It's very sweet. It's idealistic, but it's not real. And it's not going to make any significant change for Black people in our lifetimes. This is what we've been doing, and it's not working.
Well, I'm gonna have to get another word on that, because Martin Luther King said, "Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend."
Not alone.
I've been on the ground in Bucks County. I've seen the transformation taking place, just like I've seen in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and other communities throughout the country. And Faith, I'm not talking about a passive love. I'm talking about, this is not a warm, touchy-feely kind of love. Oh, you go ahead and do anything you want. I'm going to keep on loving you. It's not about that. It's about holding people accountable. I'm the guy who received death threats, countless, and I didn't know who to turn to. Death threats from the police. I wasn't going to the FBI to report that, because I didn't know if they were going to come after me either. So I'm the guy who went through that for 4.5 years to make a film that is now changing lives. And these programs that we're doing, that's based on love. Love is the answer. It's an acronym for Learn About People. Open your heart to their needs. Volunteer yourself to be part of the solution in their life, and empower others to do the same. And it's not touchy-feely and just hugs. I invite you to come and see the work that we're doing and participate with us in that, because we're getting a lot of pushback, but we're also getting a lot of results. And people on both sides are saying, I don't know about this love thing. But when they jump in and they do the work, things change. And we're not going to get there without transforming hearts and minds, as well as legislation and other things. So I want to invite you to come and do some of that work with me and see it in action.
With all due respect, I can't. I just can't. And the fact that they're buying your book, I think that's great, but it's not enough for me. And also, Martin Luther King said a lot of things, and people pick and choose what they want to hear that he said. But Malcolm X was a smart person too. And he
Absolutely.
believed in action and not just words, and hugging people and pushing out all of this love across a generation of people that don't love us back. I think that there needs to be more focus on the Black community, doing things for the Black community, and not worrying about helping white people to embrace us at some level, so that now they don't feel bad. They don't feel like they want to kill us all the time. You know, I think that there's a big difference between, you know, there's a lot of space between love can heal everything and taking action. There's a lot of things that can happen in between there that need to happen, in addition to this whole love thing that you're talking about. I don't have any love for white people who shoot people dead in the street. I don't think that's ever going to change for me. And I think that it's a huge waste of energy and time to convince people to have love for that, for them to convince them to love us. Is never going to happen. And I feel like it's never going to happen, at least not in our lifetime, and then not without some significant changes in the Black community first.
And we do need to have, right, we do need to have significant change in the Black community in order for everything to change, not simply with the police departments across the country, but everything in this country, everything. But you're probably right. It's got to start somewhere. And that's probably a good place for it to start. And we have to be accountable. We have to make it happen. Whatever mechanism we use to make it happen, we absolutely must make that happen. The change is our responsibility, not theirs. Not theirs.
I don't know if I agree that change being art. I think change is the responsibility of everyone. And I think what Brother Ali is doing, the work he's doing is strong and powerful work. I think we're so angry sometimes.
Jay, something's going on with your sound.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Something's
Your
going
sound.
on with your sound.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it's really AM radio sounding.
It's kind of, yeah.
Listen, I can't do anything, but we're on this stuff called technology. And technology does what it wants to do.
Yes,
the way
it does.
Wants to, when it wants
Yes,
to.
it does.
But AM or not, I believe that what the brother is doing is good work, and we should not, whether we agree with the work or not, I'm always open to another side, especially if it's not what I want to do. I want to know everything because I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to see.
Right.
And I think, you know, but I understand our anger as well. But if we let anger be our driver, if we let hate, if we become the same hate that we hate, see, I don't look at it like two Americas. There's one America, and we have to insist that we are part of the mainframe. We have to insist, even to us, the way we, you know, until we become investors and speculators and all the other things. And I think our issue is more socioeconomic than it is racial. We haven't moved up the socioeconomic ladder at all. As a matter of fact, we've fallen.
It's because of systemic racism that we haven't been able to move.
No, ma'am. It's because we won't even invest in the market. We're 13% of the population. We don't make 1% of.
And you don't think that has to do with systemic racism and the fact that we've constantly been put down and pressed down and denied? I mean, redlining.
No, ma'am. I think that if nobody can in the stock market, they can't separate your dollar from anybody else's.
Where are Black people supposed to get the dollars to play with the stock market?
Let me tell you something. You could have had $100 and bought a NEO, electric car company in China. You could have bought 100 shares for $100. Today, those 100 shares will be worth $6,000 because they're selling for $60 each. As a matter of fact, it's going to go up to $392. So your $100.
Right, so even if you were to educate,
now, ma'am, are you going to be talk or are you going to interrupt?
But it's taking.
You can't. I know you're mad, but you have to listen. It's hard for you to do that though. but you should.
I,
You should
I am
have
listening to you, and
You
I am
can't
very
okay.
angry when I hear people
Would-
talking
you
about
can't
the
listen.
community like
You
we're
can't
Okay,
listen.
so
and
so
talk
what
to
we
people.
so what we're going to do, what we're going to do at this point, I want to hear from both of you. I want to hear from both of you. I want to hear from both of you. However, what we're going to do right now is give you something that will make you feel a little bit better. And we're going to regain where we were. We're going to come back. So Mai, it's on you.
Okay, so that's a great segue into how someone in our future looks at this responsibility. And I'm sure you've probably all seen it, but we're just going to play the last portion of Miss Amanda Gorman's inaugurational poem.
Need to bring that sound up, Mai. Mai, can you bring that sound up?
She probably can't.
No, there she is. She's trying to right now.
Okay, so I didn't realize you guys couldn't hear it. Let's
No,
see if
couldn't
this-
hear it.
Okay. Now?
No, we don't hear anything now. Okay, so let's come back to that. Let's come back to that. But let me go back to Faith and to Jay. Faith and Jay, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Okay?
You
Faith
know,
and Jay, go ahead.
I don't need any time. I said what, listen, Faith and I, we obviously have different ways of going about it. We probably are going to have to agree to disagree on this. I'm not a victim. I don't let people victimize me. I believe I can do anything I want to do. I just never met a white man that can hold me down or stop me from doing anything I suspect I want. I'm 59 years old. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I just think that you have to, there are racisms and bigotries that have always existed in this country. And America, if she wants to be great, she's going to have to pay her debt. That we know. But we also have to take some responsibility for how we change our direction. And I'm done with it.
Thank you, Faith.
So many things. Let me just start by saying that this conversation is exciting, but it doesn't take long before a woman with a voice is called angry. Just because I disagree with what everyone is saying, the typical angry Black woman narrative is extremely infuriating. So yes, now I am angry. Although I wasn't raising my voice or screaming at anyone, my opinion alone put me in the angry Black woman category. I'm allowed to disagree, and I'm allowed to say that I don't agree with this Kumbaya fest that is being promoted by a lot of Black people in our community as the way to fix relations with America. And so I think it's important that we have conversations in our own community, that we fix things inside of us first before we start worrying about how white people see us. Because I don't believe that white people are ever going to change their opinion about us to the extent that they're going to help us advance, because it's not in their best interest to see us be successful. And it's important to me that people understand that we have to take control of our community, that we can't go to the white community, the Spanish community, the Asian community, and expect them to care more about us than we care about ourselves. And so, yes, I agree. Black people we don't have the financial literacy that we need. We don't have the training on the stock market. We don't have a lot of things that we should have, but all of those are a result, in my mind, of systemic racism. And they're very intentional that our communities don't have these things. And when Black people, a few of us, get out and we get them, we have a responsibility to go back and teach the people that are still there, because this is still who we are. And so I understand that it's difficult to hear a Black woman speaking in a way that you think I shouldn't, but it doesn't mean that I'm just your typical angry Black woman, and that narrative does not work for me.
I teach financial literacy. We have a group of 1,000 people. So I agree with you. We have to help each other. I didn't call you an angry Black woman. I just said you were angry in your approach to this. And I think everybody heard that would say that there was a bit of anger, but not because you're a Black woman or you're an angry Black woman. I mean, you put that narrative out there. I would never say that. That's not what I said. I think you're a very smart and articulate Black woman. In this particular point, you came across very angry.
Okay. So everyone is entitled to voice their opinion. We are going to move on. I'm sorry, Faith, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mai, and thank you very much, Jay. Mai?
Can you guys hear this?
Yes.
Our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left with. Every breath from my bronze pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the windswept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
And this is a segue into the next question and answer period. And I'm going to, because we are at the last 30 minutes, we are going to rush through our questions and our answers. Again, we've got 2 minutes in which to answer. We've got a whole lot of questions here. I'll leave it at that. But I really want to thank all of you for your time and the information that you are disseminating to everyone. We could keep going at this rate for the next 4 hours tonight, but we're not going to do that. And our engineer won't let us. So my question is to Lawrence. Lawrence, how can African Americans build and build back greater if most are not investors, business owners, or property owners? If we begin at a shortfall, if we begin at a deficit, how can African Americans build back greater? And this question is for Lawrence.
Thank you, Colette. There are two things. One is time and timeline. One of the things that I think is what I always love about the generation before us is that I feel like there was a long view around the work that they did, and that they may not see the benefits of their labor in their lifetime. I think for many of us, when we think about a lot of these initiatives, a lot of the thinking is that this will happen in our lifetime. And I think to build back greater, there has to be a sacrificial mindset shift to say that we may just be laying down the trail for our grandchildren, and that in order for me to take this step, I'm going to sacrifice my well-being. I may sacrifice. And I think this mindset of greater, a lot of times when you come from nothing, my family coming from nothing, there's this, I need to succeed. But in order to succeed, similar to the point around even the voting and making sure that you're actually getting resources from lobbyists, you have to play the game. So it's kind of one or the other, right? If I'm going to succeed now, I have to operate in the system now. I have to go get my degree, go get my debt, go to grad school and do everything I need to do. But there's a different shift to say, you know what? I'm taking the long view because I'm taking a collective view for my people, and that I actually may not actually benefit from this system, but my children will benefit from the shift in the system. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's getting in the way of our community getting better is that, and I'm speaking and implicating myself, that we're some of the first few generations that are now getting the degrees, getting the jobs, getting the advance and doing everything. But now you're ingrained in the system. Now you have stuff to lose. So now you've neutralized the whole generation, right? Because in some sense, there's only but so much you can do unless, or you're going to sacrifice your livelihood, right? There's only but so much for me if I'm working for McKesey and I'm a partner there when I worked before. if I say certain things that are necessary for my community, I'm risking my job. And then if you have a family, that's a difference. And so I do think that one of these pieces is a mindset shift to say, maybe this, how do we take a long view, and what are the steps that we need to take that may benefit the following generation that may not benefit my own?
Thank you. That's a very good response to the question. And as you're answering that question, I really had something that I wanted to say to that, but it'll take up too much time. So I'm not going to do that. I'll leave that for another time. My next question is for Dr. Sylvia. And my question is, how can African Americans build their businesses and communities with essential businesses such as grocery stores, pharmacy, healthcare stores, and local hospitals? We know that there are huge disparities in healthcare. And how do we mitigate that? How do we change the narrative?
Well,
Dr. Sylvia Gates.
Right now, we know that we are a traditionally underserved community because we are under-resourced. And so many of the things you mentioned, a hospital or other things, require capital. But I think we need to start looking, number one, on what can we leverage within our communities, and that may be grants and foundation money, but then also start leveraging the things that we can control directly that aren't dependent on anyone else, such as educating ourselves about health risks, demanding that our tax dollars be invested in communities that have greatest needs. No one needs to clutch the pearls that Black people have worse outcomes with COVID, because the last pandemic, H1N1, Black people were more adversely affected. And the one before that, measles. So people can find us when it's time to collect tax dollars, but we need to hold people accountable for investing tax dollars to achieve equity, not just equality, equity in under-resourced communities.
Thank you. And that's a very, very powerful statement, because we are lacking in so many areas, and we're not demanding. We're not demanding. Thank you. Mai?
This next question is for Mr. Dennis McKesey. How do we dispel the myths that HBCUs are substandard, and that the programs are substandard, and that the degree is substandard and not recognized as viable instruments after graduation?
Well, it starts with a mind shift and understanding that we know that that's a blatant lie. You know, we know it's not the truth. And when you think about the accreditation process and requirements for HBCUs, it's no different than it is for any other college or any other institution. And so when people say that, I know, again, it becomes this fight and this struggle to kind of prove it. But the question is, why am I trying to prove that's that standard of education is any higher or lower than anybody else? When you think about some of the people like Samuel L. Jackson, Alice Walker, Herman Cain, Oprah, Dr. Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, Langston Hughes, these are all graduates of HBCUs. And so when I want to actually put before young people an opportunity to see greatness, that's what I'm showing them. And so when you talk about whether or not I have to prove to anybody why or if it is substandard, you just look at those people that I just named and dozens, hundreds, if not thousands of other successful people, and you can clearly see that it's not a fight that I'm willing to fight. And I'm encouraging young people to actually do their own research for themselves and understand that many who've graduated from HBCUs have been pretty successful, and they look just like us.
And don't forget, we've got a vice president, Kamala Harris,
Absolutely,
who is a Howard grad.
Absolutely.
And
Don't forget.
let's not also forget that being a Black face in a white space, and I say this as someone who was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, so I have the receipts. There's a lot of hostility and toxicity. And one of the things that HBCUs did and continue to do is to reach out and nurture people. And if you're talking, I'm glad my parents who went to HBCUs were able to nourish me so that I could be the only and not end up taking in some of this toxicity that you face all the time. But HBCUs have always been a place that delivered excellence, and that people need to stop hating themselves and believing faux facts when the results speak for themselves.
Isn't it
I
just
totally
white
agree, brother
people that
Dr.
think that?
Carlisle.
I mean,
I'd like
are
to-
there Black people that don't believe HBCUs are a good
Oh,
place
yes.
for Black
Yes.
people?
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes.
I
Yes.
wanted to
Yes.
add in two things in there. One, I think Black Church PBS, Skip Gates had just had the
Yes.
documentary.
Yes.
And one of the major things that I even learned in that was that most of those early HBCUs were seminaries. They were seminaries, right? Started as seminaries, right? And I think part of that second point is the why. Because I think we've been hearing the anecdotal who went to the school. And I don't think, I think in order for a mindset shift is that what were they really preparing our people for? And I think when people are hearing that, that would help. Because I think one of the things that I'm seeing that I think is a real crisis of the time with our generation is that we've prepared people to build a career, but not build a life. And I know a lot of people that are right now in their mid 30s, late 30s, they don't have a life because they've been like, get your career, get this. But there wasn't a holistic picture of like, what are my obligation to my community? What should I do? And I think that's the subtle, I think, insidious thing that happens sometimes when you may get educated in other places. That sensibility that I have to do something by this point. I need to go back. Sometimes, not everybody is lost. And so I think the why about why they came will help people a lot.
Well, and remember, we have people who feel that they want the best for their children, and they think the best is outside of the Black community. They think the best is outside of an HBCU. And I've heard someone say they wanted the nephew to go to either Harvard or Yale. And I said, why not an HBCU? Because I want the best. So you mean to tell me an HBCU isn't the best? So that's an issue that I could argue with all the time. And I believe Faith said it, Jay said it, you said it, Lawrence. It's a mind shift. That's why we're here. We have got to change the mindset. And that's a job. That is a job that is, not only is it a steep hill to climb, my God, that is a job.
Thank you for those answers. What needs to take place to change the mindsets of Black people to understand that we can fix most of our own problems so that we can stop waiting on permission? Miss Jan Perry.
Well, I've never been one who waited for permission, nor have I ever asked for permission. So I don't know if I'm the best person to ask that question. I seek out people who are of similar mind in that they want to focus on an issue, whether it is to build housing, whether it is to get people jobs, whether it is to teach people, how to better manage their money, and to develop, as the gentleman said, a life that is holistic rather than I'm gonna get you a job and then I'll see you later. What's the long game, and to be able to teach people that, as your parents age, how are you going to care for them, care for yourself, and care for your children, and not lose all the equity that your parents may have gained in acquiring property after the war through the GI Bill, and to be able to pass that from one generation to the next so that you can thrive and achieve and do even better than your parents did. So I'm not talking about talking in an echo chamber. What I'm talking about is looking for people who go beyond just the talk and provide the deliverables, and understand that there needs to be a strategy to be able to provide those deliverables. And if I can't find that person in an elected official or in an organization, or in myself, I go out and I seek it. I don't wait for somebody to do it for me. And I want to just say to Faith, I find your presentation to be authentic. I don't see it as anger. I see it as authenticity. There needs to be more authenticity between us as Black people. And we shouldn't have to mince words. We don't have time. Time is of the essence. Our people are getting hurt. People are living out in the street with mental health issues Their lives are being shortened every day because they're inhaling dirty air, subjected to the elements. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, California, where African Americans are only, I don't know, 9% of the population countywide, and they are majority of the
Did you
population.
say 9?
Yeah, 9%. But they're the majority of the population of the people living on the street. Okay, so and that's a construct. It has to do with a lot of things: mental health, general relief, the way that public benefits are designed. But it's also a failure of people's perspective too. And so people do get angry, and they do need to express themselves, because you need to create that sense of urgency. Otherwise, the mind and the body adjust to what they may perceive as normal, and it's not normal. This should never be normal, and it's not something that should ever be acceptable to any of us.
Right. Absolutely. And it should not be acceptable to any of us. And I don't think that there's anything that's going on right now that is acceptable. I don't think there's one thing that's going on in the Black community that is acceptable. I'm shocked to hear you say that we're 9% in the county. I'm absolutely shocked. And that, to me, that just begs to, why are we here? We need to be in a place where we're building our own communities. We should be building our own communities, and we're not doing it. And to be 9% of a county like Los Angeles County, Hollywood.
We're only 6.6% of the state. There's only 2.3 million African Americans in the whole state of California. So LA County is number one, 859,000. The Inland Empire is number two with 189,000. The Bay Area is number three with 187,000. San Diego is number four with 154,000. And Sacramento is number five with 151,000 African Americans. So we're concentrated in 5 general areas of the state, and we only make up but we spend $96 billion a year in the state of California.
What are we doing? And again, what are we doing? What are we doing? And that's why we're here. So Ma, you have another question?
I do. I actually wanted to, there's a couple of questions, but the education system all over the country is in need of an overhaul, and Black children suffer the most from being left out of the main STEAM programs, which we do. Why don't we demand more from the schools that we, the taxpayers, pay for? And I know Mr. McKesey said earlier, not everyone's built for STEAM, but with the era of AI very fast approaching, statistically, by the year 2030, I've heard that basically we won't have any jobs. I mean, for the most part, unless you are a part of STEM, that, you know, these robots are taking over the regular job. So I don't know if you in particular want to speak to that question, or if someone else wants to volunteer.
I'll be real brief on it. I mean, I think, you know, one of the first things we have to do is embrace the remote learning aspect of things that's happening right now in our country, right? See, the bottom line is most people are not happy with the fact that children aren't in school, that they're learning remotely. And if you want to train and develop young people's minds to actually go towards STEAM, STEM, as well as AI, it's important for you all to, you know, it's important for us to convey the message that technology can and should be something that we embrace and look forward to utilizing for us to build, you know, to build a career, build generational wealth and everything else. So I am saying that it's important now that when people say, well, let's hurry up and shove the kids back in the building, that also includes us making sure that technology remains a pivotal and integral part of their learning every single day.
Absolutely.
So are you saying that it already is in the inner city schools, a part of their learning?
It is. You know, I think obviously there are some areas where things are a bit spotty in terms of the technology that isn't available to some based on their socioeconomic situation at home. But in most instances, that's where we are going right now. For almost the past 11 months or so, most children in this country have had to learn remotely. Now, again, some have learned better than others based on, again, the need and the scarcity of technology at times. But nonetheless, I do think that we're moving in that direction. And I'm somewhat optimistic about the fact that our children are going to be more prepared now for AI and for STEM and for STEAM occupations than before. Because remember, before this, every time you look around, you walk into a school, a child is looking at a textbook. And within that textbook are a bunch of lies. So now we're giving children the opportunity to actually use technology to actually build a greater future for themselves, but also for us to be able to provide additional resources that actually transcends just a textbook that most of us grew up knowing were filled with lies in the first place.
Wow.
Thank you.
Can I add what Dr. McKesey said?
Okay.
During the pandemic, there was a big boom. I think you probably people have caught. There was a big homeschooling boom, and there was a black woman, a black woman, Stanford educated black woman who kind of got a group, almost like it's like 10,000 mothers, because they're like, what do we do? And most of them said, well, how do we educate particularly black children? And so in the same way, she kind of created like this master plan and curriculum based on age, and it became this very viral thing. I think similarly, every election cycle, the way we come and say now, it's like, here's the plan for Black America. I think actually the education has been more democratized in the sense where now you can actually go, there's a number of educational learning platforms. And I think many parents just want to know, what should I tell them? Where should I go? And I think there needs to be plans that say in these areas, here are the things. Like, for example, I think if I have a child, you are reading the 1619 Project. You will not be a black child that does not read that. There needs to be that for the training. And I also think from a Silicon Valley perspective, there's been a lot of pressure beyond Code 2040 to say, now you're putting out educational content, make this free and accessible to hold you accountable for young children that they get access at low cost. So they don't have to pay anything, but actually putting pressure on these tech companies that have these educational platforms now that allows these people to access. So I think we need a broad-based curriculum for a Black America that allows people, and I think the access to that information is easier now than it was before.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you. Mai, do you have anything you want to say at this point?
No, thank you for those answers.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Can I just chime in on that a little?
Go right
I
ahead.
think I misunderstood the question because it turned very technical, very tech responses. And I was thinking something totally different in terms of what is being taught to Black students in schools versus just the technology piece. My son is 15 and he has been on a technology track since like, I don't know, first or second grade, with everyone having iPads and things like that, using certain websites for homework, to the point that I personally retain things better when I write them down and when I have paper. So I've kind of, wanted my son to do both to see which one worked for him, and not the assumption that it's always going to be technology for the younger kids, because it's not always the best. Everyone learns differently. But with regards to just trying to change the curriculum, I think that every time, our history has shown that every time the Black community comes together and does something positive and has a Black Wall Street and has all of these really successful communities, white people come in and destroy them. And so part of what I think needs to happen right now is we need to have those communities. We need to have that strength on the inside, but we also need to have an infrastructure to protect the community once we build it up. And that's what I feel like is lacking right now. We are so hell-bent on being accepted by America and not understanding that we are America, we built America, we can certainly do what we did for America for ourselves, and then protect our community within these United States. I personally think that is much more endeavorous and much more logical in terms of success for our community than trying to expect the patriarchy that we've been dealing with for the last 400, 500 years to finally just come today after George Floyd and a couple of protests over the summer of 2020 and decide that we actually do matter and they should stop doing these things. There's been no realization of that. We saw that on January 6th at the Capitol. We all know that if those people had been Black, they would have been killed on the sidewalk.
They'd still be trying
They
to
would have
clean up
gotten
after
nowhere
that.
near the
That's
Capitol.
right. They would have
And
never
right
gotten
now,
it.
right. And what's infuriating now is that these people who went there with T-shirts made for the Civil War that they were going to be starting are being charged with things like trespassing. as opposed to felony charges that would put them in jail for life if they were Black people who had survived the massacre that would have happened on the lawn of the Capitol. And I think that until we as a community realize who we're dealing with, that it's never going to get any better.
Well, Faith, I agree with that. And I was just going to just simply just go back to what I was saying, is that in terms of the accessibility for the information for young people, the textbooks that children were using prior to this was most certainly not going to give the true facts of what happened in January. And one thing that's certain now, that this is forever etched in the internet, in the world of technology. They can't erase this part now. Whereas in the textbook, in most instances, they can go generation after generation after generation telling everybody how Christopher Columbus discovered America. Now, it's very complicated, very difficult of a situation now to convince us that we didn't see what we saw in January. You can't tell me that. I don't care if it's never in a textbook.
Yeah, but even online, if you can Google January 6th in the Capitol and you can see a Fox story, and it takes a very different spin when it's being told, depending on who's telling the story. And even when we watched it happen, depending on what channel you watched, you got a different story. And so I just think it's important that even with the technology, that we control some of that technology. We can't just rely on Google. Google is white. Google has an agenda. Google gets money from certain places, and they're going to be true to their clients, to their advertisers. We need to have that for ourselves.
Faith,
we need to have our own Google that takes
absolutely,
the right information.
Absolutely. Faith, you hit the nail smack dab on the head. We need to have our own Google. We need to have our own Amazon.
Everything.
We need to have our own everything. Yeah. Absolutely. Lawrence, I'm going to let you have 30 seconds.
No problem. I just was affirm with Faith. Yeah, I agree. I think partly people need a curriculum, not about school curriculum. I'm saying in the same way we have a plan for Black America, we have the Dr. Claude Anderson. We just need a centralized place for people, if they are doing the self-learning, which many people are taking on now since the pandemic, to give people a pathway to educate themselves in terms of where you get that information, what is real history. And I think we do have the information, it's just not consolidated in one place.
Right, that's for sure. And you mentioned Claude Anderson. As a matter of fact, Claude Anderson was the best friend to my foster brother. And unfortunately, my foster brother isn't with us anymore, but Claude Anderson is still here. He was supposed to be with us, but he's retired. But I wanted people to hear what Claude Anderson has to say. And one of the things that he has said as recent as 2020, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. Late 19 going into 20 was that if Black people did not get up and make a change today, he said 2020 should have been a turning point for us. He says, but now it's too late. Now it is too late. And we cannot let that be real. We cannot bring that to fruition. We've got to change the behavior, the mindset. And as we're listening, as we're talking about all of these issues, we still didn't get to all of the questions, but these are issues that we must have a concrete dialogue about. We absolutely must do that. And if it were not for Kenny Hendricks, I'd say keep going. But we can't do that.
And I'm so glad we have this platform on ITRN Radio to have these types of conversations and to create our own narrative. So thank you all for listening.
Yes, absolutely. And we did miss one of our panelists who was supposed to be here, and that's Dr. George Frazier. He was supposed to be here. He comes with fire. And if any of you know Dr. George Frazier, if you listen to the show, because he's been here, if you listen to him read his books, listen to anything that he has to say, you know that he's on fire. You know that he is. And frequently we talk about people as though we're looking for someone to do something for us. We constantly and consistently say we need a leader. Who is our leader? Should it be the church? Should it be someone in the pulpit? Should it be the reverend? We've got people like Dr. Claude Anderson, like Dr. George Frazier, like Lawrence Adja, like Dennis McKesey, like AJ Ali, like Faith Fox, like Dr. Sylvia Gates. We've got people. We've got our leaders. We've got people who can make a change. We've got people who can create that path. So we need to stop saying who's going to do it for us. We need to stop saying who's going to do it for us. We all need to make a pledge right here, right now, tonight. We're not waiting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to do anything for us. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to do it ourselves. This is the night to make a pledge. We're going to do it ourselves. As Malcolm X has said, by any means necessary. You hear that? That's the signal, but we must be optimistic. But I want to thank all of you for coming. I've got to give you 10 seconds for closing. Lawrence, what would you like to say in 10 seconds?
I love us. Another initiative, Our Brothers Keep Her, brothers looking out for sisters in the cities. That's something that's going to be coming forward. So please get involved. There are people working.
Wonderful. Thank you. Faith?
I just want to thank you for inviting me for the conversation. I appreciate the debate. And I think that it is definitely something that our community needs to do more often. So thank you for setting everything up and for allowing me to be here and take part in it.
Absolutely. Dennis McKesey.
Thank you so much for this platform. It was an honor to be here with such an amazing group of educated people of color. And I just tell you, as someone who was honored today, I can tell you that I wish I was on YouTube watching this rather than, although I enjoy the platform, I would have loved to even watch this on YouTube with everybody else as well. So thank you so much for this platform. It's amazing.
You're quite welcome. A whole lot to be said for being upfront and personal.
But you can go back and watch the recording.
Yeah, there is a recording. There's a
will.
podcast. Okay, Jan Perry.
Don't wait. Don't ask permission. Get to work. We don't have time to waste.
Great. Thank you. AJ Ali. AJ?
Here we go. I was on mute.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
This has been a wonderful family conversation. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. Get the book, read it, put it into action. Love is the answer every single time.
Absolutely. And Jay King.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And our closing prayer is going to be given by the Wilsons, Rachel and Ronald Wilson, Ronald and Rachel Wilson. And before I go, everyone, if you wanted anyone in the audience to get your information, your contact information, you were asked to put it in the chat. So please put it in the chat. You've got a few minutes. And Ronald and Rachel Wilson, please pray us on home.
Thanks again. Certainly enjoyed. It was a high honor to be here. Certainly learned a lot and was educated. Thank all of you. And we will pray. Father, we thank you this night. You have always been and always will be for us being educated. And we thank you for education, which simply means to be brought out. And Father, we thank you for this platform, which was used to educate your people. We pray, God, for everyone that was on the platform, that we will continue to be blessed of you, brought out by you, and loved of you. We give you all glory, praise, and honor. Until we meet again, we thank you for your love for us. In Jesus' name, we do pray. Amen. Amen.
Amen and amen. And I also want to say thank you to our board members, Mike Collins, Leonard Collins, Corliss, who is also a host and listen every day because she will be launching a brand new show called Mindful Mondays. I'd like to thank Theta Redwine. And did I say Leonard Collins? Yes, I did. But thank you very much, all of you, for being with us. Some of the people that I see on the board are with us for every show. We just want to thank you. This has really been a special time for us. It cannot stop. This is not going to stop. I don't care what Kenny Hendricks says. It's not going to stop. We are going to keep this going. And Jay King and Faith Fox, I've got a show for you. I've got a show for you, the two of you. Don't laugh, because I do.
I know you do.
Yeah, you know I do. Jay, you know I do. I've got a show for you. Again, thank you so much. The pleasure is ours. It's an honor to have all of you on. Yes, we do this, and we do this for the right reasons, and we do it with great intention, and we do it with purpose. So thank you for being with us. My thank you for being a moderator and a co-host and my partner in real crime. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. So everyone,
Thanks, everyone.
be safe driving home. You all need help to get walks to your car. The men will help us women get to our cars.
I mean, walk from the living room to the bedroom, basically.
Yeah, that's it.
That long walk from the living room to the
To
bedroom.
the bed. That's right. That long walk.
fall.
That's
Don't
right.
anything.
Oh, wait a minute. Dr. Carlisle. Where's Dr. Carlisle? Is Dr. Carlisle still on?
She's there. I mean, she's there, but she's not there. Oh, there
Okay.
she is. There she is.
Dr. Carlisle, Dr. Carlisle, I need you to say something. You want 30 seconds. Please say something as we close.
Data matters. Data drives action and accountability. Let's get some real facts.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Carlisle. And Dr. Carlisle, when we invite you to the show, your two attorneys, please bring them.
Careful walking to the bedroom, everybody. Careful.
Okay. Yes. Have a good night. Have
And
a good
to
night.
all a good night.
And thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks to all our listeners on YouTube.
Yes. Thank you.
Whatever you want, whatever you need, whatever you need, put it aside, and let it be. America, yeah, yeah. America, America. We all need more love, yeah. America, America, yeah. America, we all need more love, yeah, 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 yeah. A little bit more love, yeah.
Lawrence, I want to have you on the show.
Stand by, stand by.